All right, good day, hi, and welcome. Okay, check it out. Hopefully my lighting's good. I think my lighting's, I think I'm on the wrong side, ain't I? But anyway, yeah, I'm on the wrong side. I want you guys to be able to see this. Yeah, that's what I thought. Be too bright. I thought I had the right light in the right place, but I didn't. I'll show you this in a second. So much for the expert showing. There, get this out of the way. Go, zoom. Cat there. Drop a violin on your head. So look at that joint. Looks pretty good, eh? Nice, good seam. Height looks good. Yeah, doesn't look too bad at all. What? Quiet you. Don't hear a dog meow. Yeah, that looks good. That looks really good. And once I put it together, it'll be even better. So what I did today was I cleaned out the old glue off of that, basically a little bit of sandpaper, cleaned out there, cleaned all the glue out of there the best I can. I want this violin. This is my 1920 Prokop violin. I really want this thing up and playing it because it's arguably one of my best sounding violins. Very bright, brilliant. I don't know what kind of pattern it would be because it's not necessarily a Stradivari pattern in the sense that it's a much longer body than a typical Stradivari, but it just provides such a brilliant sound. And the other Prokop things with the Prokop violin is that the fingerboard is just like super long on this thing. Like, I mean, this is like, yeah, like crazy. So I also cleaned off all that and did a light sanding. I used, I believe this is a 60 grit. So just a little bit of sanding, mostly scraping with my chisel, watching my fingers, and basically cleaning that so that the joint goes together as seamlessly as possible. If you don't get all the old glue out of there when it pulls apart on you, what ends up happening is when you go to put it back together, it won't set properly. And obviously you want it to set straight, but that's a lovely violin. And sound, my God, what a good sound out of this thing. But yeah, so the idea is to get it as clean in there as possible, as tight of a joint as possible, as straight as a joint as possible. And yeah, so, and it's clean in there. That's what it comes down to. Now, here are my options. Option number one, leave it the way it is, never play it again. That's not an option. I don't want that as an option. I want to play it again. So option number two is I got to glue it. But there's two options. I have only two options. Because I do not have high glue or fish glue. I've only got, I guess it's the glue gun, the heat glue gun. That's what I used the last time, and I think it held for like 5 minutes and then pulled apart. But I don't really see that glue as weaker than the high glue or the fish glue, so I don't know why it didn't work. The only thing I figured is I didn't clean the joint out good enough, and there was probably a layer of glue still left in there from when it pulled apart the first time. And that would have basically, I made sure none of the surface is shiny. Because that means that's glue that's still in the pores, and that means if the glue's still in the pores and it's shiny, it means when you go to glue it, you're not gluing to anything. You're just gluing to a slippery surface, technically. So the other is the go for broke, crash and burn, be all end all, Lepage's glue. Yes, regular wood glue, which will hold it. But if I ever have to take the top off or do another repair other than a neck repair on this, which I'll probably never have to do a neck repair again on it, which is good. But if I ever have to get into the top, that neck is never coming off. And that's one gamble I don't know if I want to take. So I know the final solution for this thing would be Elmer's wood glue, or that you know, basically, you know, I mean, that's great for tables and stuff like this. It'll never come apart. The glue is actually stronger than the joint. So yeah, I have no problem with it doing that. Problem is, if I ever have to remove the top, it will almost become an impossibility with that joint being solidly glued like that. But I already know that my first attempt with the hot glue failed. But did it fail because it didn't bond, or did it fail because even though it bonded, it didn't seem to be strong enough? I don't think it was that it wasn't strong enough. That's my hunch. But so do I try it again? Because when I glue this, I'm going to let it sit for a month. I could probably start playing it in a week, but if you really want the thing to settle, I mean, even if you let it sit for 6 months, the longer you let the glue dry, the better it is. But I've missed playing this. And it is a real pain in the butt to keep scraping the glue out of there. And there's another problem too. If I have to, every time I sand a little bit, even though it's just enough to scuff up the surface with the 60 or whatever grit, the other problem that happens over time is that neck's going to get warped because you're going to be basically, distorting that surface with the sandpaper. You can only scrape it so much, and then you got to get you got to roughen it up. And when you roughen it up, you're going to end up, possibly damaging that. So I don't have access to the glue I need. So the thing is if I do the hot glue gun again, there's no harm, no foul if it comes apart. It's just, okay, well, scrape the glue off again and see if it'll hold. So the other problem is that if I ever want to play this live in front of people, I don't want to be sitting there wondering if the thing's going to fold on me on stage. It would be funny, but it's just like, because everybody would be like, what I mean? Like, oh my God, his violin just died. It's like, but I'd be like, well, that's the way it goes, right? How did that string get in there? And I have no idea what kind of strings these are. It's like a mixed batch of strings. But yeah, I really, I might try the glue gun again. See if that will work. I can only do what I can do. I don't know what else I can do, because something I thought of was drill a hole here, drill a small hole here, put a dowel in, permanent fixture. But again, the strange thing about violins, unlike almost any other woodworking or carpentry you do, when you put it together with the idea you might have to take it apart someday to, I don't know, fix a crack or something. And it's not like this is the most expensive violin in the world, but its book value in mint condition is anywhere between $750 and $2,700. I didn't pay that much for it at all, not even close. I got it kind of as is and fixed it up. That said, fixed up, I've got maybe about 150 into it with the pegs and the nice tailpiece and all that stuff. And it is a violin that definitely worth, like I had to put in the sound post myself. I put on the chin rest. It was just basically the violin, with the neck attached when I got it. There was nothing else on it. The guy that had it, Brett, from a little store he has in Rochester Street in Ottawa called the Violin Shop, I think is what he called it. I think it's simply called that on Rochester Street. And he's got some old vintage violins, and he had this sitting in a box in the basement. And I went in and I bought a bunch of them. If you followed the channel a couple of years ago, my other channel, you would have probably seen all the violins I picked up. Now I got 6, right? I picked up basically 5 from him. So with the idea of turning around, flipping and selling them. The problem with this one is I really like this one. That's the problem that usually happens. So this one, if I can keep it playable, I keep this one in the line head violin and sell the others. Although I do like the others. This one is just really, really, really brilliant in sound. So it's something that, if you can make it, keep it going, you definitely want to keep it going. Yeah, so I'm going to think on that in a bit. I'll let you know what my verdict is. I think I'm going to try the hot glue gun again. I'm not anticipating it to work. It's not like I have to have this thing up and by a certain date and time. It's not like I don't have other violins to play, but it is a violin that I really, it was about 2 or 3 months after I bought it that I started to notice that the sound was starting to really come out of it. Now, one thing I'll say is that, just to finish up, is that with my other violins, like my Lionhead violin, that one, the sound is just completely glorious out of it now, especially with the good strings on it that I bought. You know, they're holding up. I mean, I bought those strings like almost 5 years ago, I guess. How the time flies, right? And they're still holding up and they sound good. So I'm like, if this thing had a set of obligatos on it, wow. Like, this is a soloist violin. It definitely, not, it's too loud and too cut through and too brilliant for an orchestra, I think. It would just be too, it definitely a violin, soloist violin. That's why I like it. So that'll be good for, you know, playing in the band and stuff like that. Now, when I got this one, it was a bit stuffed up like all these other violins that's sitting, you know, they could have been sitting in a basement for 10 years. The Lionhead violin probably wasn't played for 100 years, you know what I mean? That thing's between 150 and 200 years old from what my research has shown me. It's not a Jacob Steiner, but it's a Jacob Steiner clone from Cologne, Germany, I believe. It was a music factory. I think it was called the Cologne Music Factory, whatever it was, XYZ. But it's been closed at least 150 years. So, yeah. So when they sit there, like when I first got my Lionhead violin, like for the first 6 months, the thing was like really, really, really quiet. It sounded okay, but it was really, really quiet. And then I put the good strings on it. It still sounded good, but it was still really, really, really quiet. Then I got this one. This one like just like bites your face off right from the get-go, but sounded good. So I'm like, okay. So then I had it for a little while, started playing it more, and then all of a sudden